Sorry about that. My camera did the thing that it likes to do where it randomly kicks me off and thinks it knows more than I do. So back to what I was saying. So Cal, the guy in the video, is lecturing on psychology and reading emotions on people's faces. And somebody asked them, how do you know that he was actually genuinely surprised? How do you know he wasn't faking it? And in response, Cal takes his coffee mug and throws it against the wall. And of course, it breaks and it shatters. And when it does, everybody does this to shield themselves. That's an instinct. Because as humans, we know that whenever something breaks, there are shards and shatters, and that they have the potential to hurt us, so we shield ourselves. That's an example of an instinct. Instincts are behaviors that we engage in automatically in order to kind of protect our species and protect ourselves, or to guide us. We may not necessarily realize that we're doing it, but we do. Um, so it's an unlearned biological pattern of behavior that is universal within a species. So again, everyone has the instinct to protect themselves. Um, Whenever you are in a dark place, for example, um, whether you realize it or not, a lot of times we will perform behaviors that are protective. So, and all of that is part of instinct. So, hopefully that's clear. Um, Next, this pattern or this theory, drive reduction theory. So, drive reduction theory, and for the most part, actually, this entire chapter is based off of this theory of homeostasis. Homeostasis is your body's ability to maintain a natural balance. So think of yourself again. I kind of equated us to like a computer battery one time, that sometimes we function at 100%. And that's how we know, everything's performing perfectly. Well, say for example, in that case, that our bodies are comprised of, you know, you have to have rest. So maybe 25% of your functioning is dictated by how much sleep you get. Another 25 of it is based on hydration. Another 25 of it is based on nourishment. So do you have all the vitamins and minerals that you need? Um, and maybe another 25% is biological health. So your physical health as a human being, making sure that you are not hurt, injured, sick, chronically ill, those things. Everything kind of forms into this 100% like computer battery type ratio, right? Well, drive reduction theory says, oh, hey, that 25% of your functioning that comes from hydration, yeah, you're running low. You're down to 15% now. So your body's naturally going to try and fix itself. How? It's going to make you thirsty. So, when we have resources, we have an innate urge to replace them when we use them, which is why we constantly try and drink water or Coke or Gatorade or whatever it is that you drink. Really, your body needs the hydration, it needs that water component. That's part of your optimal functioning. So, whenever you go for a run and you sweat out a good portion of that, your body's going to want to try and replace that. So, kind of looking at slide 4, kind of explains that. So your need is water. Your body needs a certain level of hydration in order to perform, in order for you, and I'm not even talking about running or working out or anything like that, just to be able to wake up in the morning, go to work or go to school or whatever it is that you do, you need a certain level of hydration and water. So that's your need. Whenever you lose that, you're going to experience this drive. It's going to be a discomfort in your body. Um, you display this, and that's thirst. The thirst is an urge to replace the resources that you've used, and that's the drive. Okay? So, another example is sleep. Your body needs sleep, it needs rest. So, whenever you're not sleeping well because, baby's crying, dog's barking, whatever it is, and you're only getting an hour of sleep a night, your body can't function off of that for an extended period of time. It needs more than that. So, what's it going to do? It's going to make you sleepy. It's going to make you tired. And that's your drive. That's how you replace the resources that you need that you don't have. So hopefully that makes sense. But that theory of homeostasis, you're going to see this again if you haven't already. Any biology classes that you may take, you're going to talk about homeostasis. This is something that really explains how and why your body works the way that it does, and it is simply that balance. So hopefully you'll take that concept and be able to use it in the future. Talking about looking at slide 5, we're talking about optimal arousal theory. It's also called Yerkes-Dodson law. So the law says that we have this threshold, that we have this period or this level of performance where we do best. And in that place that we do best, there's a little bit of anxiety, but not too much. So this is my challenge to you. For anybody in here who works out, if you exercise at all, if this is your thing, I challenge you to work out next to someone that you find attractive. Why? Because that's how you're going to get your best workout. And this comes from evolutionary theory. So evolutionary theory says that we have an innate urge to survive and to propagate our genetic line, which means biologically, in a certain period of time in our lives, we try and reproduce. So whenever we find somebody attractive, whether we realize it or not, subconsciously, we consider them a potential mate. So we try and impress them, which means whenever you get on that treadmill next to that hot guy or girl, you're gonna run faster. You're gonna work harder. Why? Because you want to impress them. Why? Because evolutionary theory. The point is, you are working in this theory or in this threshold of optimal arousal. That you are not just slumming it because you don't care about what the other person thinks, but you're also not to the point that you're overexerting yourself. You will get the best workout you can, but also perform at a level that you can sustain. So that's my little challenge to you and how I explain Yerkes-Dodson law. Think about it also in terms of, if you're not a workout person, which I am not anymore, was once upon a time, but not now. Think about it also in terms of test taking. So I think a lot of us, maybe not, but I know that I've gone into tests where I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine, I'm not worried about it. And then there have been times that I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to fail this. Oh my god, going into the SAT, I was a nervous wreck. Like, I'm about to take a test that can take the rest of my life. No pressure or anything, right? It can go, that's why you need this kind of middle ground. Okay? When you don't care, you're not going to perform as well. Why? You don't have the motivation to. Versus, if you put too much pressure on yourself, you're not going to do well. You have to have that little bit of test anxiety. You have to care just enough that you're invested, but not to the point that you're worried or anxious. So hopefully that helps explain it. All right. Going along with the book, make sure that I'm on pace here. Homeostasis, body's tendency to maintain an equilibrium or steady state or balance. We're good there. Yerkes-Dodson law. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but overlearning is important. For anyone who's ever had any military experience, training, right? You're like, oh my god, how many times am I going to do the same thing over and over? But the thing is, if you do it enough, you overlearn it, which means whenever you have other things that could be distracting you or could be presenting a challenge, this becomes an automatic process. So you don't have to think about what you're doing. Your body does it automatically so that you can deal with the challenges around you but still perform your given task. So that kind of goes along with it. Next, we're going to talk about hunger. Hunger, food, eating, all these things. Cannon and Washburn performed a study. So Washburn actually ate a balloon. He swallowed a balloon, and what they did was they were able to control it and kind of measure it. And what they found is that whenever Washburn was hungry, his stomach muscles actually contracted, which you're like, it's kind of counterintuitive. You would expect them to expand in order to make more room, but no, that's not really how this works. Um, whenever you actually put food in your body, then things expand. But when you're hungry, those walls contract, and they're like, hey, feed me, Seymour. Bonus points if you get where that reference is from. Anyway, so whenever he got hungry, he pressed a button, and whenever he pressed the button, they looked at what the stomach was doing and found that the muscles were actually contracting. How does this work? Well, your blood sugar, your glucose level, drops, and it activates the lateral hypothalamus. Lateral hypothalamus says, hey, you're hungry, you should go eat. And then you eat, and the ventromedial hypothalamus is activated whenever you've had enough. It says, hey, I'm good now, you can stop. So that's what makes you feel full. And, there are hormones that come into play, things like this. But basically, blood sugar, your body recognizes, hey, I'm hungry. And then, hormones are activated and these processes take place. Obviously, these are not conscious processes. This is kind of guided by your body and physiology. So, chapter also talks about eating disorders. So, kind of started out with obesity. There are a lot of health risks that are associated with excess weight. So, obviously, some of the most pressing being cardiac issues and cardiac health, heart disease, things like that. Diabetes, another one of your really, really big ones. As you gain weight, your chances of type 2 diabetes increase. They've also found breathing problems, obviously, because if you're out of shape, it affects how well you breathe. It affects your respiratory system, including sleep apnea, because the more weight you put on, the more trouble you have breathing, and you're not conscious to regulate your breathing whenever you sleep. So that's another big one. This slide also, I'm on slide 7, in case you're not quite looking or following along at the moment, talks about set point theory. And this is the weight that you maintain when you're not trying to gain or lose weight. This is just kind of whenever you're doing your thing and you're just existing, what do you weigh? And then it also kind of talks about mindless eating. Mindless eating has risen. Obviously, with the advent of television and food, a lot of people eat while they watch TV. Even I'm guilty of it sometimes, whenever I don't have my son in particular. But it's really easy to not pay attention to those signs that our body gives us of whether we're full or hungry whenever we're paying attention to X-Files or Lie to Me or whatever show you happen to be watching at the time. Now, on the other side of things, anorexia nervosa. So anorexia actually means loss of appetite. Anorexia nervosa is the eating disorder, characterized by an intense fear of gaining weight to the point that they will not maintain proper nutritional habits. Typical diet is normally between 1,500 and 2,000 calories. Somebody with anorexia nervosa will consume markedly less. A false sense of body image. So I put a video on there. It's a YouTube video with Karen Carpenter. She was a singer in the 70s, and she died of cardiac complications related to anorexia nervosa. We look at Karen Carpenter in the video and we're like, oh my god, she looks like a skeleton. Her cheekbones, you could see every bone. You could look at her and tell she was sick. But whenever she looked in the mirror, she still saw someone who was overweight or who could still lose weight. And that is the distorted body image, or the false sense of body image. And again, refusal to eat the proper amount of calories for fear of gaining weight. It typically involves starvation and deteriorated physical health as a result. It's worth Noting too in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 4, so the book that we use to diagnose mental health disorders, in DSM 4, there was actually a body fat percentage that accompanied that. That's not the case with the DSM 5, which is actually really good because a lot of times people would not be able to get the help that they need, even though they had the disordered thinking of saying, oh my god, I can't eat this broccoli, it's going to make me fat. Um, they didn't meet that kind of numerical guideline as far as, well, they're still a normal weight, and even though their thinking is disordered, their physical health isn't suffering yet. With DSM 5, that is a boundary that they eliminated. Another sign of it is also amenorrhea, which is a loss of a menstrual cycle. As weight fluctuates, eventually they will lose the ability to keep their own body going and regulate its own biological processes. Simply put, they don't have the calories to have a menstrual cycle. That's, again, going back to that pattern of homeostasis. Their body is out of whack, out of sync, and that's one of the ways that it presents, is with not being able to produce a period, which is that loss of menstrual cycle. Continuing on with eating disorders, bulimia nervosa. So a lot of times this comes with overeating. So eating way too much or eating too much too fast, followed by a purging behavior, which will also often take place in the form of laxatives, vomiting, or even excessive exercise, which is something not a lot of people think of. And actually, I put an article in there from self.com. Again, feel free to evaluate the source and the discussion that I'm going to post later. But it's a form of purging that not many people think of, because in our society we tend to think of exercise as something healthy. It's a good habit for us to have. And most of the time that is definitely going to be the case. However, there are some cases where people take it too far and will injure themselves trying to lose that weight because they've previously binged. Binge eating disorder is very similar to bulimia nervosa in that, again, you have a abnormally large amount of food that's been eaten, sometimes been eaten within a very short period of time, or a period of time not necessarily considered normal, but there's no purging behavior. So that's your big characteristic difference of that one, is that there's no purging in that one. All right, coming up next, talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Actually, hold that thought before I do that. Let me check myself according to the book, make sure I didn't miss anything. Again, set point, the weight maintained when the individual makes no effort to gain or lose weight. Anorexia nervosa, covered that. Bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder. Yep, we're on track. Awesome. So talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, it's a triangle, hence the term hierarchy. You have these basic needs that you need in order to survive, which we've kind of talked about already. The whole food thing, water, sleep. These are all things that you have to have in order to stay alive, right? So because those things are needs that you have in order to just live, Maslow put these things on the bottom. These are our physiological needs. And what you're looking at here is needs. So things that you have to have in order to function. And his theory with this was that the more you had in terms of resources, the higher up you could go on this hierarchy. So looking at physiological needs, do you have everything that you need in order to biologically survive? You do? Good. You have food, you have water. Heck, you even have shelter. You have a roof over your head. Awesome. What's next? Okay, well, you've got this roof over your head, but you also live in a war zone. You have neighbors who are shooting each other, robberies, breaking in, day and night. So next is safety. So you have that bottom level very well under control and taken care of. Fantastic. Next is safety. So you may have all of these things, but you need, in order for you to keep going and become the best that you can or live in the best possible conditions, you have to improve your safety. Um, and that's kind of what's next on the hierarchy. Um, so going along with that, sorry. So after the safety, what you're looking at, um, love and belonging. So do you have people that care about you? Do you have friends? Do you have people to talk to whenever you're lonely? So, and then after that is esteem. How do you feel about yourself? Do you have self-confidence? What do you like about yourself? What do you struggle with? And are you working to improve the things that you struggle with? And then the final is self-actualization. According to Maslow, not many people made it this far. Self-actualization is being the best that you can be. And for him, most people didn't make it that far up. Most of us get caught in the lower layers of the hierarchy. So, okay, maybe we have a roof over our head, we have all of our physiological needs met, but we struggle with getting along with our parents, or we struggle in our marriage, or whatever it may be. That's going to fall in those kind of lower categories of love and belonging and esteem. And then, once you conquer those, then you go up and you can work on how you feel about yourself. And then, again, becoming the best you that you can possibly be. So hopefully that helps clarify that. Really, in terms of this, for testing purposes, know the bottom, know the top. Okay? I know kind of in the middle, primacy and recency effects. I know those are your big ones. But understand that you have to kind of conquer the bottom level before you can move up to the next one. So hopefully that helps. So carrying along with that, self-determination theory. This is kind of the idea that humans are born with certain needs. And with that, sorry, I'm getting distracted. It is kind of the need for certain things. So, I guess this is kind of a parallel to drive reduction theory. So that everyone has the need for competence. So feeling good about ourselves, feeling like we know things, feeling effective. And again, this goes back to that concept of self-efficacy, how effective you feel you are at something. Relatedness, understanding people and being able to connect with people. And then also autonomy. So what it is that you are trying to balance these three things. You have your ability to be on your own, which is autonomy, your independence, your self-sustainedness, but again, also you have to feel connected to someone. So balancing those two things, and then also kind of also balancing. I kind of think of competence as your need or your ability to feel effective at something. It's almost like I hate to say it, but it's almost like self-esteem, kind of how you feel about yourself. And with those three things, that you're kind of always struggling with one of these things, and it is kind of like a constant balance. Hopefully that makes sense. Something else that the book didn't really talk about, but I kind of kept in there. Talk about a need for achievement and need for power. People struggle with this. Some people are more a need for power, and that they feel that they have to be above someone or in control of someone, versus some people, and I'm more this person, a need for achievement, that I need to do things, that I need to complete tasks, in order to feel fulfilled. And it's not to say that one person has one or the other, or that they're mutually exclusive, but these are two really big factors playing into people's motivation. Because again, that's what we're all about in this chapter, right? So, on the course of motivation, you have extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. I'm going to tell you right now, whenever it comes to intrinsic motivation, that is where you see more positive income or outcomes. When we want to do something for ourselves and it's something that we decide that we want to do, we tend to have very positive outcomes, because it's important to us. So we achieve that because it makes us feel good about ourselves. Versus extrinsic motivation, which is doing things for other people or because other people want them done. On the slide, I use the example of cleaning the house. So, it's one thing to come home every night and go, God, this place is a pigsty. I hate it. Let me go ahead and clean. You're much more likely to do that or to be happier about that, because it's an internal pressure. It's something that you want to do for yourself. Versus, it's a very different thing to come home and be like, find a note from your roommate. There are dishes in the sink again, all capital letters, scribbly, angry face. Is that going to put you in a good mood? No. Is that going to make you less likely to want to do the dishes? Probably. So extrinsic motivation, we do that because we have to a lot of times, especially, again, going back to that need for power, whenever we have people in positions of power. Talking about conformity and obedience, it is one thing to want to put the cover on the TPS reports because we want to do it. It's another thing to say, you forgot to put the cover on the TPS reports again, you're going to get fired. Whenever you have that whole hanging over you thing, that's when extrinsic motivation can be a very strong motivator. But as far as mental health and well-being, intrinsic goals and intrinsic motivation tend to prove for more healthy changes. So hopefully that helps. Self-regulation. This is a big one. In terms of mental health, a lot of developmental disorders affect self-regulation. So, we all have schedules that we need to keep, things that we need to do. So, we kind of have to adjust our priorities in our life accordingly. It's Sunday night. A lot of you guys may be home doing homework or getting ready for your school day tomorrow or getting ready to go to work tomorrow, whatever it is that you do. Would you love to be out at a party right now? Probably. But is it the responsible thing to do? No, not really. So you have to find this balance. Doing the things that make you happy versus your responsibilities. And that's self-regulation. The process by which an organism effortfully, that's your key word, effortfully controls their behavior. So, and for people with developmental disorders like autism and ADHD, that is a huge challenge. For most of us, we know, no, I can't go out to the bar with you guys tonight. I'm sorry. I have class at 8 o'clock in the morning. Most of us. And that's self-regulation. Versus, there are some people who are like, oh yeah, you guys are going out tonight? Well, I'm supposed to have a class at 8 o'clock, but yeah, that sounds way more fun. I'm going to do that instead. And then you blow off class. Self-regulation. You got to find that balance. For people with autism and ADHD, it's really, really difficult. So for a lot of people, they go to class, they know that they have to go and listen and do assignments and things like that, so they control their behavior. Why? Because they're trying to meet a goal. You can't just show up and start fights every time you go to class and get kicked out every class period. What is that going to do in terms of your goal? Is it going to get you there? No. So you have to effortfully control your behavior, and that's self-regulation. So hopefully that makes sense. Um, Next, we're talking about emotion. Um, so make sure I didn't miss anything. Going along back with self-regulation, it does talk about delay of gratification. That is key in that because, again, you're looking towards your long-term goal and putting aside your momentary happiness. Um, Going back to emotion. So, feeling or affect that can involve physiological arousal, behavioral expression, and a conscious experience. So, I did a thing. I started thinking about this and I was like, what is the best way to try and think about in terms of this? So I pulled up a song that you guys may know. Pulled out Lose Yourself by Eminem. Why? Because it does. It talks about emotions. He does a really good job of explaining nerves and being nervous. So palms are sweating, knees weak, arms are heavy. That's a physiological response. Do you control when your palms get sweaty? No. It's something that happens automatically. Again, thank your sympathetic nervous system. Um, there's vomit on his sweater already, mom's spaghetti. That's a behavior. Can you observe someone throwing up? Absolutely. Is it pretty? No. No, it's not. But it is a behavior. You guys remember back in chapter 1 where we talked about how a behavior is something that you can observe? That's how you know it's a behavioral expression. He's nervous on the surface. He looks calm and ready to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting. So this goes to the conscious experience part. He's thinking, and he's thinking so fast and so rapidly, and his thoughts are so pressured that he can't keep things in his mind. He can't focus. He can't concentrate. Have you ever been in that position before? Maybe speaking in front of other people. You have to do a class presentation or maybe a presentation at work where you have to get up and talk in front of people. A lot of people kind of use that adage, oh, picture people naked, and it's meant to help calm you. For me, I think it would probably make it worse, but that's just me. That's your inner experience. So, your conscious thought, your inner experience. What it's like for you, what you're thinking about. And what it is it proves that these things are all linked together. What you think influences how you feel. And how you feel affects the things that you do. It affects your behavior. And all of these things go together. How do you know? Okay, well, maybe you're doing that big presentation at work. And you're going up to the podium and you trip. Well, what happens? Well, there's your behavioral expression. You're nervous, so you're stumbling over your own 2 feet. You're losing coordination. But then that's going to affect your conscious experience because you're supposed to be going up there talking about rates of poverty in the world or something. And all you can think about is, oh my God, I've made an idiot of myself already. And then, as a result of that, you feel your face flush. Your face turns red. Okay? All of these things affect each other. So they're not mutually exclusive. And with one affects the other. So hopefully that's clear. Theories of emotion. So James Lange theory of emotion suggests that a stimulus initiates, yes, I'm reading the slide, initiates the experience of a physiological or psychological and or behavioral reaction, and this theory leads to the feeling of emotion. So basically that you have these bodily responses and that you label these bodily responses as emotions. Cannon-Bard theory, that you have this environment and that the environment determines your bodily reactions and emotions. Your Schachter-Singer theory of emotion suggests that emotion is a bodily reaction and a cognitive label. So, oh my God, my heart's beating really fast and I can't think clearly and I'm running for my life. I must be scared. That's your cognitive label. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm more than likely not going to put theories of emotion on the test. I feel like they all kind of tried to capture the same thing and just kind of split hairs about how they wanted to label it. They're all really credible points, but I think you can kind of think yourself into oblivion over analyzing these things. Um, if you want to, by all means, feel free. But in terms of assessment, I'm probably not going to say which one of these is that because they're all very, very similar. So don't plan on me doing that. Um, to wrap it up, talks about fear, talks about biological factors and emotion. Um, Facial feedback hypothesis I did not put on the slides, and I really wish I had now. That kind of goes back to the lie to me thing, where we recognize emotions on other people's faces, and it controls how we behave. If you don't believe me, try going up to someone. Find somebody who is very nice and outgoing and perky. Um, excuse me. Maybe go to a restaurant and have a nice waiter or waitress, or go to Target and find somebody at the checkout line with a big smile on their face. I dare you to do that and not smile at them, or at least not want to. We recognize the emotions of others and we try and match them. And that's what the facial feedback hypothesis is that um, our behavior and the things that we do um, is affected by what we see around me. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I miss this part of our class. Um, Being in an in-class environment, I love it because there will be days that I'm having a bad day, and I'm like, I don't want to wake up this morning. I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. But then I get there, and my students have a smile on their face, and that bad mood that I was in goes away because I try to match them. Is it purposeful? No, not at all. It's just something that happens. But this is one of the things that happens. Another example, and this is slightly morbid, but you know, people don't go to funerals happy. Um, because you go and you see other people who are sad and have experienced this loss. So you're not going to go around, smiling like Harley Quinn at a funeral. No, that's not what normal people do. You see the pain that others are in, and you adjust your emotions and you adjust your behavior to meet the social expectations of the world around you. So hopefully that makes sense. Um, that is pretty much it for this chapter. One thing, I want you to go back and review the sympathetic nervous system again, because this chapter does talk about fear. And fear can happen in one of two ways. So you experience a stimulus and you have instincts. You can just react without thinking about it. That goes back to that whole instinct thing, right? Um, it can go to your thalamus, and it may be sent to your cortex for processing, or you may just react. Okay, so talking about fear, um, your first one is, oh hey, something bad is happening. Okay, well, I'm going to send this to the cortex and we're going to figure out what we want to do about it. Versus being in a life-threatening situation. Um, I had a thing, I like to tell my class about it, years and years and years ago when I did run. I was running one day over by Lake Lafayette, and alligator came out. I was not super close to the alligator, but I was close enough that I could see it. And needless to say, I'd probably never run so fast in my life. The minute I recognized that it was an alligator, I didn't have to think twice about it. There was no processing in my cortex. My amygdala was activated. I realized, oh heck, that can eat me. And I ran for my life, literally. Um, you react without realizing. Your stress hormones are activated, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, and your mind and your body give you the resources that you need to escape the situation that has caused this fear. That's scenario 2 which is slide 16, fear scenario 1 is where, oh crap, I was in a car accident. Okay, what do I do now? Well, you are in this thing that you can't control, but you realize that you've survived. So now this is when you start thinking, I'm going to have to call a tow truck. I'm going to have to file an insurance claim. I'm going to have to maybe buy a new car. I should probably call an Uber so I can get home. You realize, okay, I am not in mortal danger anymore, but I still have all of these other things to do. That's scenario 1. That's kind of your best case scenario. Versus again your scenario 2, where it is genuinely a life-threatening situation and your brain goes into protect mode in order to help you survive the situation. So yeah, go back and review that, and hopefully we should be good. I will go ahead and post. I'm going to go ahead and post up the quiz for chapter 11 if I have not already done so. I honestly forget at this point. Actually, I don't think I posted the quiz, but I did post the PowerPoint. So I will tell you this too. Chapter 11, one of my just basic rules of life, but especially in my class. We're talking about gender and sex and sexuality. We've all kind of taken this class, and I'm hoping that everyone can be adult about this. If you need to point and laugh at the PowerPoint, like, there's a penis, go ahead. Just do me a favor and don't do that around other people. Be respectful. This does have the potential to be a pretty hot button topic. I don't plan on it being that way, but you never know what life's going to throw us. So, again, that is where we are with things. I hope all is well. If you need me, by all means, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys and talk to you next week. Be safe, and I will talk to you later.